Hello, folks. Welcome back to Mojo. This high stakes project, tight deadlines, diverse team paired cross content, and stakeholders holding their breath for days. So who's the one thing that determines if your project doesn't or derails? It's just not tools or talent. It is the invisible glue of communication. Today on PMMojo, we'll dive deep into the real world power, you can say power moves you can use to transform project communication from chaos to clarity. So stick around. By the end, you will be unstoppable at getting buy-in, resolving conflicts, and leading teams across borders. Let's get you noticed and get you started in the world of project. So hello to all project leaders, lifeline learners, and the global team community. I'm Ramesh, your host. If you want actionable tips and expert secrets on how to level up your project management experience, especially around improving communication, then you are in the right spot. In this episode, we are covering every angle of effective communication and project management, with a focus on stakeholder engagement, transparent reporting, and conflict resolution. So whether you're managing an agile software rollout in Silicon Valley or a construction project in Mumbai, these universal principles and location-specific tactics will make your next project a success. The first thing, let's talk about why communication is everything in project management. Now, you see, communication is the keystone of every project, as they say, impacting collaboration, alignment, and risk management. Did you know up to 90% of project managers' workday involves communicating? And that could be via meetings, emails, calls, or reports. There are different ways to do that. Now, research has also shown that teams with transparent communication complete projects faster. So if with fewer delays or project overruns, you can actually complete your project successfully. So when communication breaks down, the other thing that happens is misunderstandings multiply, leading to missed deadlines, scope creeps, or even total project failure for that matter. So communication for that matter is not just transmitting information. It means creating shared understanding, trust, and motivation. Now let's talk secondly about the core elements of communication in a project. So what are the types of project communication? Could be verbal, which could be meetings, calls, quick huddles, or it could be written, like emails, reports, documentation, instant messaging, which is pretty commonly effective these days. And then non-verbal, like body language, facial expressions, even tone of voice in virtual meetings. And then comes visual, like dashboards, charts, Kanban, Gantt charts, status indicators. The other thing on this is the key communication channels. Like we talked about emails, and then there is collaborative platforms like Slack, Teams, Trello, Asana, Jira. There are various platforms which actually make your life easier. And then there is like formal channels like board meetings, stakeholder presentations, or even like simple project meeting. And then informal, like about some talks which happens over coffee chats, one-on-one check-ins, open door like many people have open door policies. You just walk in and communicate and get things done. So ask your team and stakeholders how they prefer to be communicated with and customize your methods for better engagement. And the next one on this channel thing is the communication plans, the blueprint. Develop this right at the when your project kicks off. So define it correctly who needs what info, how often, and by which channels. Stakeholder mapping ensures every voice is heard, so make sure that happens upfront. No one falls through the cracks. So that exercise becomes very important. Update the plan as the stakeholders or project stages evolves. So just because you actually made your stakeholders at the start of the project doesn't mean that you're finished. It is an evolving document and you need to keep on updating it. And let's talk about thirdly in this section about stakeholder communication. Like, how do you engage the hearts and mind? So, first question, like anybody can ask, is who are the stakeholders? It could be like your clients, could be sponsors, could be team members, vendors, users of your tools or products, and sometimes even the press or community group, especially in public projects. Now, another tip in this how to engage stakeholders is if you talk about some top tips, if you have to give about that, it would be like identify primary and secondary stakeholders upfront, which is important, and then customize communication. Like busy executives want highlights and decisions, so don't include all the details. And users need practical instructions, but you like identify who needs what and then communicate accordingly. Localize. Use geo-relevant languages, like for example, teams across different regions, a culture-specific jargon. Build trust with transparent, regular updates, not just when things are urgent, and have a feedback mechanism and continuous engagement. So create opportunities for stakeholders to give feedback. Surveys can be done for that. Have open forums. Periodic reviews are very important. And then adapt communication based on feedback. Flexibility breeds loyalty and efficiency. So make sure that you are flexible and not hard bound to some things that you have already like put in the document. Now, fourthly, let's talk about the team communication. Building alignment across cultures. Like, what do you mean by that? So, when you start, like, set team communication norms early. Use simple, direct language, especially with the multinational or remote teams. Hold daily stand-ups, like which are very important in your agile framework. Quick meetings to align group goals, unblock issues, and build rapport. So, have that early and have that going throughout the project. Mix work with relationship, like celebrate wins, call out learning moments, and encourage open dialogue. Next one on this is like address communication challenges. Time zones, cultural differences, and technical jargon demand sensitivity and flexibility. So have that clearly spelled out and have that communicated to your teams and make sure that teams are actually followed. Especially like when in diverse teams, like you need to clarify terminology and encourage asking questions. Like people ask people what questions they have, what problems they are facing. That and like, no question is too basic for that matter. So that should be a ground rule. Now let's talk next about the project reporting from your data to decisions. What do you mean by that? Strong reporting basically is fewer surprises. So share regular updates on progress. Obstacles and success metrics should be like communicated regularly. For visual matter, have charts, dashboards, maybe simply have complex data in these formats for all your audiences so that they can understand what you are trying to communicate. You see, context, as they say, is king. So don't just deliver numbers, especially what's going well, what needs attention, and why it matters. That should be included in your communication. And have actionable next steps. Every report should end with clear calls to action, not just status updates. Having said that, let's talk about conflict resolution. How do you transform tension into teamwork? So, conflict is very common among our team. So, don't be afraid or run away from that. Common roots of conflict could be misunderstood messages, unclear expectations, cultural missteps, unaddressed issues which could be there among the team members. Encourage active listening. Let every party speak when you have a meeting. Rephrase their main points to ensure understanding so that everybody gets the gist and then share those meeting notes. To prepare and promote transparency. Address issues early. Don't let discomfort festering in your team because whenever there is a conflict, try to nip that in the bud and resolve that immediately. Match approaches to the situation. There are different ways to actually do it. Fuel is a methodology to do that. Sometimes you need to compromise and get things done. Other times you need to collaborate for a win-win or rarely we need to do a direct confrontation with the person for urgent resolution. Now, some conflicting resolution style could be like a withdraw or avoid. Use when emotions run high, tactical withdrawal at the time so that you can address it later when things cool down would make sense. Smooth it, accommodate, preserve relationships, pick your battles and win the war. You need to also compromise, find the middle ground to keep work happening and moving, and then collaborate, like problem solve together for lasting solutions. And sometimes you even have to force and direct it for urgent, non-negotiable situations. And they should be only for that. The barriers to effective communication and how to bust them. Common challenges that people get in their projects are information overload or noise, cultural language differences or remote hybrid work challenges like tech glitches, lack of face-to-face interactions, or ambiguity and vague statements. It could even be ego and fear of open dialogue. So how do you overcome this? Some of the strategies that you can involve in this could be use a simple jargon-free language, set agendas for meetings and send them in advance, practice and promote active listening, be transparent, lead by example, share both wins and issues, have regular one-on-one meetings to support shy or new team members, and encourage feedback and act on it. This creates a two-way communication stream, which is very important for any project success. Now, let's talk about the tech for better project communication. What are the tools that you can use? Some of the platforms that you can use are Slack, Asana, Jira, MS Teams, or Trello for collaboration and transparency. Use video calls for richer engagement. Don't rely solely on chat or emails and think that your work is done. Centralize updates and files so everyone knows where to look for information. Now let's talk about visual and non-verbal communication. Use Gantt charts, Kanban boards, flowcharts, timelines to represent complex plans visually. This could be helpful for all learning styles. It could be for cross-cultural teams that you have. Pay special attention to non-verbal cues on video calls, facial expressions, tone, body language. That could be something which will give you a clue. Encourage tuning cameras on remote meeting to improve understanding. Some tips for project managers. The first one I would say is like the first minute effect. The first minute of every meeting or written update sets the tone and determines clarity. Be concise and direct in your communication and lay down the goal or agenda in your meeting. Understand individual preferences. Ask team and stakeholders how they want to receive information. Foster an environment of psychological safety where team members feel valued and heard. And reduce costly miscommunication errors. Celebrate clear communication success. Recognize and reinforce effective information. No matter if your projects run in Paris, Pune, or Phoenix, communication is the universal language of project management. Make it your superpower. And every team, every stakeholder, and every deadline will thank you if you do that. But if you found these strategies eye-opening, hit like, subscribe, let me know what you feel about it. So I'm Ramesh and you have just gone through the communication discussion with me. Until next time, communicate boldly and watch your projects, how they soar and get successful. Thank you for watching.